Today's Bible study comes from Luke chapter 11, verses 29 through 32, and reads as follows. As the crowds increased, Jesus said, "This is a wicked generation. It asks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah. For as Jonah was a sign to the Ninevites, so also will the Son of Man be to this generation. The Queen of the South will rise as a judgment with the people of this generation and condemn them, for she came from the ends of the earth to listen to Solomon's wisdom, and now something greater than Solomon is here. The men of Nineveh will stand up at the judgment with the generation and condemn it, for they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and now something greater than Jonah is here." Now Jesus is dealing with the crowds as he had just cast out this demon and was speaking to him. And as the crowds increased, Jesus said, "This is a wicked generation." And it was wicked because it was asking for a sign instead of having faith. It wasn't having faith, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah. And when it speaks to that, it speaks to the 3 days and the 3 nights in the belly of the whale, where Christ is speaking to the 3 days and the 3 nights that he will be in the earth. For as Jonah was assigned to the Ninevites, and remember, the Ninevites were going to be destroyed because they were not God's people, but Jonah went and preached the word. Just the word. And the word did what it did, and they repented, and the Ninevites became God's people. So also will the Son of Man be to this generation. Jesus is that sign to this generation. Jesus is the sign that Jonah was to the Ninevites. Jesus is a sign to the world. Woo! The Queen of the South will rise. And when the Queen of the South rises, it's going to be some problems. The Queen of the South came to Solomon, and you can see that in Kings, First Kings. And when she saw the great work that God did for her and through Solomon, she was happy with that. She was excited. And she didn't say, "Show me more and maybe I'll believe." She believed. The queen that came from the south, if you don't know, if I'm not mistaken, it was Queen Sheba. And Queen Sheba accepted the messengers of God. But as you can see, Jesus' audiences were rejecting him right now. So the Queen of the South will rise at the judgment with the people of this generation and condemn them. So she has a job. For she came from the ends of the earth to listen to Solomon's wisdom, which was words of God. And now something greater than Solomon is here. Jesus. Much greater. The men of Nineveh will stand up at the judgment. Remember, they were going to be smited, destroyed, but they repented. So even the men of Nineveh will stand up at judgment with this generation and condemn it. They will have a job. For they, as I told you, they repented at the preaching of Jonah. They repented. And that's how they became God's people and didn't get destroyed. And now something greater than Jonah is here, and that is Jesus the Christ. So the sign that they were asking for is a sign that Jonah had, except it wasn't going to be in the belly of the whale, it was going to be in the earth. And when Jesus came back, that was a sign for these generations. But they had some situations coming because their faith was weak. Amen.